Hey y'all, hi, it's time for another episode of New Makeup Hot Takes. All of the other YouTubers in Charleston told me that intros are out. We're not doing them anymore. But I'm thinking about it and I just can't bring myself to say nothing at the beginning. But what if I just say, it is I, Hannah Louise Poston, giving you my opinions on new makeup releases without promoting overspending. If you like it, I hope you'll subscribe. And now let's go to New Makeup Hot Takes. New Makeup Hot Takes. Okay, first up, eyeshadow. I'm kind of organized today. Sometimes I come to New Makeup Hot Takes a disorganized mess, and sometimes I come with a thesis or a series of theses, which is what I have today. Theses. Eyeshadow. Look at the trend, the eyeshadow palette trend that is happening. You know I'm so interested in trends that arise organically, especially color trends. This one is just unignorable. It's like the last 3 eyeshadow palettes on Trend Mood. They're all grouped together because they all got announced at the same time. And they all look the same. There's the new Natasha Denona palette, which we'll discuss in a moment. I just need to get this trend spotting business out of the way. There's the Nomad Cosmetics Majestic Kingdom palette. Those are the 2 that are the most similar and the closest on the timeline. They're just both, they're both even like desert inspired. And they're both doing this like shades of green, including chartreuse, grungy shades of sand, and cool toned neutrals thing. Arguably, I feel the new ABH palette, Cosmos, has a lot of the same neutrals holding down the fort. Those shades of sand and a little bit of terracotta. And then it's doing like a shiny, sparkly topper thing that the other ones aren't doing, but it's, when you see them all together, it's like they're pushing many of the same buttons. We have the Linda Halberg Cosmetics new release, which is a palette that doesn't have those colors because it's all super neutral, but it's also very cool toned. It has some in common with the ones I've already talked about, but more in common with the new release from Melt Cosmetics, the Dark Matter palette. So it's like Melt and Linda Halberg have both released neutrals palettes that are quite cool toned, kind of grungy. But the Melt one also has those sand colors, bringing us back full circle. The Melt one is kind of all the way around the circle, side by side with the new Natasha Denona release in terms of those sand colored neutrals, like desert inspired. So it's not as though they're all dupes for each other. It's just so many makeup artists and brands have clearly all gotten the same idea for this season, and it's kind of an unusual color idea for eyeshadow. We're going into summer. I feel like this time last year we were seeing pops of orange and blue and just kind of aggressive, bright color stories. This year, instead, we're seeing extremely grungy, earth-based, like, again, desert-inspired, earth-inspired, rocks and minerals and ore-inspired, and sort of like space rock, like metal from space and moon rock type of colors and feelings, like dark, reflective, ground-up, textured, grungy stuff palette. For summer, it seems like an extremely dark, moody direction in which to be going, and it also seems like a very neutral direction in which to be going. We'll often see color trending for spring and summer, but I am super into it. I am really happy that we're seeing this. I like the idea that people are like, I'm going to take summer by storm with these like grungy metallics all over my eyes and like green and orange and weird and earthy and dramatic. I'm into that for all of us as a vibe, as a way of kind of breaking away from what is maybe a little bit more normal or expected for this season. It makes me feel excited about makeup and about the prospect of that kind of thing, even though I haven't been doing those kinds of looks frequently on my eyes. Like over the past year, I've been moving more towards simple eye looks. I still like these colors, especially the neutrals. Let's go back and talk about the Natasha Denona palette. I wanted to throw all of those up on the screen and kind of compare them to each other and talk about what I'm seeing overall and what it implies to me for summer eyeshadow. I'm not necessarily going to talk about each one in detail, but I don't want to skip talking about the Natasha Denona one in detail because I know that's what you want to hear about. So what I was about to say is that I've been really into one and done eyeshadows lately. I'm not wearing any eyeshadow today, but when I do, I will often take like a cool toned metallic taupe or a really neutral metallic bronze and just put it all over my lids. And there are a couple of shades. There's one shade in the Natasha Denona palette that would be that. For me, that would work for me. It's the shade Elysian, the really cool toned taupe. Sort of a platinum, actually. And as always with Natasha, I appreciate that the dark brown in the palette is distinctly cool toned rather than leaning warm. But there's nothing else about this palette that makes me want to buy it. It has all this stuff in it that isn't in my wheelhouse and that I just am aware these days that I don't like wearing, actually. I mean, I'm totally saved from the lust for this one. Green is a great color and can even be a great color for someone with my coloring. I don't think that it looks terrible on me, but I find that it doesn't necessarily suit me. And I think that has more to do with my personality and what I tend to wear and the other makeup that I tend to wear than it does just with my coloring, all things being equal. So it took me a long time to learn that because ever since I was a wee thing, ever since I was in my cot, people have been like, oh, green is great on you, you should wear green. And I believed them for a long time. And then over the past couple of years, I've been like, I do it though, and then I see what they mean, but I just never feel my best. So moving away from green, I'm attracted in a vacuum to some of these grungier greens, but I just know that I wouldn't get the wear out of them. And then we all know that I'm always fighting things going too orange on me. So all the rest of these shades, which are pretty much orange or orange leaning neutrals, is not the thing for me. The shiny golds, which look really pretty, they all lean quite orange. So it's just an easy pass. But I think it will probably go over well because these are shades that a lot of people love to wear and that look great on a lot of people. And I think that this palette does what Natasha Denona does at her best, which is that it offers both a really dynamic color story that can be used to create those artistry looks that are kind of edgy, where there's contrast, where there's statement and color blocking. But also it's a very specific color story. It has a strong point of view. It's not trying to do more than two things. And in doing those two things, it's doing the one thing that it does. It's saying like, I am about green and orange and the way that those two colors interact. It's really just doing the one thing. And I love that in Natasha Denona. I loved that about the gold palette, especially. It was just like a deep dive into one color, one idea of color. And I feel like this is as well. I mean, there are two colors in the idea, but it's taking the idea of those two colors and doing a deep dive into that idea. Palettes usually try to do too much. That's my feeling. So I really love that. And that offers the dynamics that I was talking about, but then there are also enough shades in it that are really practical, neutral, easy to wear shades that you could also buy this palette and have it be your only palette and you wouldn't be out to dry when it comes to just neutral glam looks or everyday looks. It really does all of the things that I like for eyeshadow to do, and in that way I think that it's a smash hit. It just happens to be dealing with shades of color that I'm not interested in putting on my eyes right now, so that's why it's an easy pass for me. The ABH palette is curious, the Cosmos palette. It's curious to me because it's a departure. I feel like ABH seems to sort of hit all the same notes all the time, even if it's a different color story. It feels the same. Like the way that palettes are executed kind of always feels the same. And this is different. Those 4 semi-sheer shifting toppers. But I'm not interested in those colors. There's a pink one, a lavender, a blue, and a green, and those are just strong, bright pastel colors. And so that makes me feel like this isn't for me, even though I'm a little bit more interested in it in theory than I usually am in ABH palettes because I feel like it's doing something a little bit new for the brand. And of the other ones that I talked about, the one that attracts me the most is the Linda Halberg palette, just because I love those grungy neutrals. And those are the kinds of shades that I tend to wear these days. Both the mattes and the metallics, both the lights and the darks. I mean, I could just see myself really getting into this palette. It's inspired by rocks, so of course I like it. And it's nice to see something like this from Linda Halberg because I have always liked her looks, her brand, and I feel like it's been a while since I've seen something from her. I'm especially interested in that like mid-toned taupey bronze. It's like a really cool toned version of a bronze, and in the really shiny looking sheer topper. It doesn't mean I'm going to run out and buy this. I'm in absolutely no position to be doing that, sitting here with no eyeshadow on my eyes today. I mean, I just have really I've been leaning into lip makeup and face and cheeks, and I have been less inclined to do up my eyes lately, so I'm letting that be a reason not to buy eyeshadow right now, even if it intrigues me. But it was fascinating to go onto Trend Mood today to get caught up with what is being released and what brands think we want right now, and to see all of these grungy, earthy color stories. It is just an interesting color moment, and I'm more interested in that than I am in buying anything right now. Oh, but I have to give an honorable mention when it comes to eyeshadow to the Clionadh palette. Clionadh is releasing a palette of multi-chromes called the Deep Sea Treasures palette. And I mean, it's a special case, right? Clionadh is a special case. They're a really small indie brand that makes the most extraordinary multi-chrome eyeshadows. Each one is literally an art supply, a jewel, a masterpiece. I mean, each one is, for me, like as good as 15 or 20 other eyeshadows in my collection, just in terms of how much use they've gotten. I have a really small, I mean, it depends on what's reasonable for you. I have about 8 Clionadh shades, and I have gotten gotten so much use out of each one of them. Every time I build my own palette, one of them is like the crown jewel in the palette. Every time I want to do the most and really light up my eyes, I reach for one. I mean, when it comes to super dynamic, original, out of this world formulas and color shifting and light shifting formulas, in my experience, pretty much nothing tops it. I mean, Pat Mcgrath, in her own extremely refined way, is reaching for similar stars with brightness and glitter and just impact of formula. But Clionadh, for me, is the original doing that in the realm of multi-chromes specifically. And I've just still never seen anything to beat that. But they've always sold the multi-chromes just individually, one by one, and they're quite pricey because of all of the expensive, rich materials that go into making each one. So it's cool to see them doing this, to see them curating a little palette that's themed, and that I think contains all new eyeshadows, like new multi-chromes for them. You know, it's almost $100, but that's what I would expect it to be given how these multi-chromes are priced. I mean, if I went to Clionadh's website and ordered 8 eyeshadows, I think that's what I would be paying. Like, I would be paying somewhere close to $100. So it makes sense to me for them knowing the brand and knowing their product. There are a couple that kind of make my heart double beat. The dark purple called Shipwreck. I'm like, what does that shift to? It's hard to capture multi-chromes on camera. So like, what is the whole story there, you know? But most of them have too much color for me right now. I think the multi-chromes, the Clionadh multi-chromes that I've gotten the most use out of, the ones that I own, are the ones that have more neutral shades. Like, there will be maybe one color, like red, but then it'll shift to like bronze and gold or something. Like, it'll shift to more neutral shades. So it's not flashing pink and purple and blue and green, but just flashing more neutral shine, more neutral kinds of shine. I think probably when making multi-chromes, it's really tempting to throw in a bright color because then you get that exciting flash of a blue from one angle that you're not seeing from another angle. But what I wish Clionadh would do is to make more neutral multi-chromes where they're grounded in a grungy color and then they just shift from like gold to bronze to silver, you know? Like, those are the ones that I would really love. This palette is clearly for the color lovers, so that makes it a little bit less hurty to me, and I'm not planning to buy it because I really, really like this brand and what they do. Okay, moving on. Category 2, let's talk about blush. There are a number of blush releases of note up on Trend Mood right now, and I didn't say this at the beginning because I didn't do an intro, maybe, but I just talk about what I feel is of note. Like, there's a whole bunch of makeup that's been released that is just, to me, not of note, either in a good or a bad way. I'm skipping all of that, but I feel like a bunch of the listings, a bunch of the posts that are of note are blushes. One of them is this update to the Dior blush shade range, the Backstage Glow blush. So the famous one is that really bright pink, I feel, that, you know, is not a color that I want, but still somehow I want it every time I see it because of the imprint on the pan and the packaging and the Dior name and all this stuff. It's just, they really know how to brand to make you want it. And so my heart always does a little skip when I see that iconic, super bright pink Backstage Rosy Glow blush. But I think that until now they only had that, and maybe they had done a coral or something. So it's awesome to see them updating the shade range with these rich, bright shades. I mean, look at that beautiful brown. We love to see it. I've never tried this formula, obviously. I don't know, but I'm very happy to see that they did this. I feel like when a luxury brand has like that iconic one product that is all over all of the mags and the social medias, and everybody seems to have it and everybody seems to love it, or it makes a big splash. I think that the pink one, maybe a Kardashian wore it or something. Like, it got famous because what's that person's name? Hailey Bieber? Maybe Hailey Bieber wore it. Somebody popular made it super popular. But there's just like the one or the two shades. And I feel like when that happens for a luxury brand, the move is to then bring out more colors to really diversify the shade range, to present us with an actual shade range of the product, even if it originally launched as just kind of like a one color thing. So I'm glad to see that Dior has done that. And actually, while we're at it, let's skip ahead to the other luxury brand that has recently done this. Chanel had just the one Soleil de whatever the business. Oh no, I'm mixing it up with Tom Ford. The Beige Healthy Glow Cream. So Chanel had forever this iconic Beige Healthy Glow, or maybe it was just called Healthy Glow bronzer. They had this famous cream bronzer, okay, and it only came in one color, which was just duncy all around. But for the people who could wear it, they loved it, and it got all of this hullabaloo. You know, that cream bronzer in the big pot, that Chanel pot that you swirl your big brush around and you put it on, and I always wished that I could wear it, but I could just tell by looking that it would be too orange. orange. And there's a whole other demographic of people for whom it would be too light. So a lot of us were left out of the Chanel Healthy Glow Cream Bronzer frenzy that has been going on for years. Then they diversified the shade range. They did exactly what I was saying that I'm glad to see Dior doing with their iconic blush. They came out with, I think, 2 more shades, a deeper shade than the original and a much deeper shade than the original. So the past maybe year or two, I'm not sure how long ago that happened, they've had more options in that cream cheek product, that iconic cream cheek product, but still none that would work for someone like me. And now look at this. Le Beige Healthy Glow Cream in Rosy Beige. Where can I buy this, y'all? Because as soon as I saw this listing, I was like, I am reviewing this. You had better believe I am reviewing this. It's the moment, I won't say the moment we've all been waiting for, but it's the moment that some of us, it's the moment for which some of us have been waiting. And to be completely frank, the moment that we thought would never come. And then I went to try to buy it and I just couldn't find it anywhere. I mean, I think maybe it's like in Australia. And this announcement was, it feels to me, weeks ago. And I'm not usually over here trying to buy things on the launch and be the first one to review them and all this stuff. And I'm not the first one because there are reviews of this already on YouTube, but where did you get it? Where did you get it, y'all? It says coming soon on their website and retailers. But let me tell you what, I checked their website and it's not there. And I checked retailers and it's not there either. Will somebody please DM me as soon as this is purchasable in the United States? Because here's what I'm going to do, review it. Also in cream blush, the first thing that has ever really intrigued me from Makeup by Mario, but even it will be something that I can pass on. It's cream blush. I mean, because cream blush always gets me where I live, you know? People love Makeup by Mario, as far as I can tell. People love the formulas. Like, it always goes over well. There's only one color in this shade range that makes me want to try it, although some of them are really pretty, even the ones that I don't want to try. In the swatches on the arms, which look photoshopped as usual, Berry Punch looks really pretty, and Rose Crush, like the 2 bottom ones, the 2 darkest ones, color-wise, they look really pretty. I'm not that interested in like the orangey pinky ones, but Barely Blushing also looks really pretty and like it would be a good fit for me. However, I can't trust this imagery. I can't trust these like AI swatches. And then when you swipe through to see them on the models, they all look really, really bright on the fair model, even Barely Blushing. Like all of the shades look really bright on her. And I am not out here shopping for another really bright blush, no matter what the undertones are, because most of the blushes that I have are really quite bright on me. The thing that I'm on the hunt for these days, the thing that feels like it would be original for me, is very pale desaturated blushes, and there aren't any of those in this shade range. But I bet a lot of people are going to love it. And I don't know, I'm glad that cream blush is still having a moment. I'm glad that it has not yet been overridden. And speaking of cream blush having a moment, Pat McGrath coming out with cream blush sticks that kind of look like ColourPop. When I first saw this, I would not have guessed that it was Pat McGrath. My guess is that they look better in person, more high-end, I mean, that the luxury quality of the packaging shows through in person. But in the images, they quite unfortunately look just like the ColourPop cream blush sticks. There also isn't a desaturated or neutral color for me, so that's getting me off the hook too with the desire for this. Pat McGrath stuff, I always want to want it. I always see it and I'm like, ooh, I want to want it so that I can want it. There are a couple things like that. I've been around the block enough with my relationship with shopping to know to be suspicious of that when it happens and to kind of spot it and be like, what is this? Do we need to listen to this feeling? So I'm not saying that I give into it every time, but it's funny because when there isn't, for example, a color for me, like there isn't a color that I think I would really love in this cream blush stick release, I feel this weird feeling where I want to want it, but I don't want it. The thing that weirdly is kind of making me want it is the double-ended cream balm thing with the highlighter. One is a translucent coral. It's just the swatch of it looks so amazing. Cyber Lotus. Translucent coral with pink blue pearls. I don't need pink blue pearls. I mean, I sometimes like pink blue pearls on my cheeks, but I have, I think, one highlighter that does that, and that's all I need. If I wake up one morning and I'm like, I gotta wear pink blue pearly cheeks, I already have something with which I can do that. So I don't need to buy this to have that, but it's just the cream swatch, that thick coral, and then the swatches on the arms. They're really getting me. I want to see it in store, you know. I want to touch it in store so that the scales will fall from my eyes and I will be able to release the fantasy and realized that all that it is just a cream blush with a blue reflect, and I don't want one of those because, wow, the fantasy in these pictures is really tapping something deep inside of me. So when I was scrolling through Trend Mood, I saw yet another announcement about this Nars blush, this newly released Nars blush, and I just thought I would mention it here because I just reviewed this in my video about Nars, the Afterglow liquid blush. And here's what I'll say. The color Behave, which in these satisfying, semi-translucent looking, gleaming, jelly-like swatches, looks like a sandy, grayish pale mauve. It is pink in person. Don't be fooled. It is pink. If you'd like to know more, go watch my Nars video. The formula is beautiful. It's just, this is a poor representation, I feel, of at least that shade, and that makes me suspicious of the way that this marketing has represented all of the shades. Oh, goodness gracious. Moving on from blush, let us talk about a despised category of makeup that I cannot believe seems to be trending. pH adjusting garbage. Like, why is this happening? You were all right in the last New Makeup Hot Takes about the Merit Lip Gelée or something. They released this product that looked exactly like the Oil Slick, which is a great product. And I was like, but what's the difference between this and that? And all of you were in the comments like, oh, it's pH adjusting. It'll just turn your lips bright pink. It didn't say that anywhere in the marketing. I wonder if they started developing it in the boardroom, and the Merit one I'm talking about, the Merit Lip Gelée, and they were like, ooh, let's do one of those pH adjusting things. Maybe they got the tip off that some brands seem to have gotten, which is a lie, that pH adjusting would be trending for spring, summer this year. And they were like, maybe we should hop on that train. Let's do a pH adjusting one. And then they got farther along the process and they were about to make it. And then they found out that everyone actually hates pH adjusting. And they were like, oh, let's just remove it from the marketing and trick everyone. Because what happened was they sent me one in a PR, the darkest shade, which I thought was the one that would be the least likely to have that horrible bright pink effect. But no, it does. It just like every pH adjusting thing you've ever put on. It just turned my lips like an unflattering shade of azalea, translucent azalea that I would never wear. But Merit didn't market it that way. I only found out because you all commented on that video about it, and I think that you only knew because other people had tried the product and found it out. So I don't know what was going on there, but they're not the only ones. Fenty has released like a cheek stick, adaptive cheek and lip stick, and the Poutsicle hydrating lip stain. Oh, maybe that's not pH adjusting, just the new match stick. So they want you to put a pH adjusting gel on your cheeks and lips. I'll tell you, if I did that, I would look like one of those cupcake dolls, some kind of Barbie or I don't know, Cabbage Patch thing that someone drew on with a marker. And Tarte, shame on you, Tarte. Look at this. They're releasing a pH adjusting lipstick, lip balm in all these colors like blue and green, but they all shift to pink. The copy says, shifts like magic into a custom pink shade. We all know by now that that is a lie, that there is not a thing where it's like custom to your face, like your skin, that it is a substance that will customize its color to you. We all know that that's not a thing. And it's definitely not like magic. It just looks horrible. All right, that's out of the way. The last handful of things I have to talk about is just a handful of random things that piqued my interest and about which I have something to say. First up, Tom Ford, just like the Dior, I was talking about the Dior blushes, makes me want to buy it. You know, there's something about it, the way that they put the package of luxury together, the way that they put the pieces together to sell luxury, that sort of works on me. And I'm just like, why? Because this Tom Ford release is full of stuff that is not for me. A very gold highlighter would not work on me. Eyeshadow quads that are very warm, right? Leaning orange, not for me. It's these glittery lipsticks. I like this kind of thing. And the way that they look on the models, really sparkly and gold, it would probably look bad. I can acknowledge that. The fantasy is not anything more than a fantasy. If I think about what the actual reality would be of these, it would probably look bad on me. So I'm not going to buy them or even care about them beyond this moment. I think I just like glittery sheer, like very, very glittery sheer lip products. And I like the way that this one in particular, the really gold one, looks on the models. That's all it is. The other thing though that Tom Ford has previewed, the Rose Lip Oil Tint, which is probably like $80 for a lip oil. Don't need that in my life. Look at this packaging. Look at it. This is, as they say, to die for. Like, I just feel like this somehow nails everything. It just really gets into amongst me. And again, even more than the other thing, because the other thing had all those colors that wouldn't work on me, and this would work on anyone, you know? I just have to remind myself that they're just selling a fantasy, and inside of that exquisitely designed tube is just a rose-scented oil that is manufactured in the same lab that manufactures MAC Cosmetics and a whole bunch of other makeup that cost less than Tom Ford. So the fantasy doesn't go beyond that. You know, it doesn't go beyond just how beautiful this looks. I just love this. It looks modern and vintage at the same time. It looks like the kind of thing that I would like to give as a gift, you know, but not the kind of thing I would buy for myself. Okay, 2 random lip, continuing in the vein of clear lip treatment type things, which is like category to which I'm attracted these days. 2 random releases that are just lip treatments. One from Rose Inc, which does kind of intrigue me because I have picked up much of what Rose Inc has put down since the brand launched. It's the Treatment Hydrating Lip Balm with Squalane, an intensely hydrating vegan lip balm that visibly restores pillowy bounce to lips. Kind of makes me want it. Kind of makes me want pillowy bounce restored to my lips. But I just repurchased the Ilia lip balm, which is like my all-time favorite, so I don't need to be out there trying another thing that's basically exactly the same thing. And then the Refy one, I mean, it really looks like something that I used to clean. At first when I saw it, I was like, that doesn't look pleasant. Applying a lip balm with that plastic scrubber doesn't look pleasant. And then I was like, but I bet it exfoliates the lips really well. But then I bet it gets really gross. Like you use it one time to exfoliate your lips and then that plastic thing is all full of lip skin. The next time you open it up, it's like the lip skin is still there. I don't know. I think it's probably a miss. I bet it won't sell well because it's weird. And lastly, Rituel de Fille has released a full range of liquid foundation, which is just cool to see because they are an intriguing indie brand that I've been following for years. And they've never done anything quite like this. I think they had like a cream foundation in their range before, but this is like a foundation launch. It says it has a serum texture, but medium coverage, which is kind of promising for me. I mean, that's in the ballpark of the kind of thing that I like for my skin. But mostly I'm just intrigued with this Rituel de Fille and because the shade range is absolutely beautiful. I mean, I'm of many minds, okay? Partly I feel this really exemplifies the fact that you don't have to have 50 shades to have an extremely inclusive shade range. It goes very, very light and very, very dark. And in 24 shades, it's great to see that. Like many brands, like almost every brand, I don't know if they've really diversified in terms of saturation. All the shades look pretty saturated. And those 3 very, very pale shades, which again, I love to see, they do look like one is quite pink, one is quite yellow, and the third one is quite peach, which is what we often see at the really pale end of shade ranges. And I'll put my video, I really did a deep dive on this concept in that video about my free advice to the beauty industry. Some of the more mid-tone shades look pretty olive, so it's not as though they haven't thought about olive undertones, but even those also look extremely saturated. And even in the olive shade range group, some of us are saturated and some of us are desaturated. So it looks like the desaturated among us might not be directly catered to by this shade range, but I am still so delighted to see it. It looks like they put a lot of care and thought into it, and they've done a beautiful job with the launch, and needless to say, I will follow the future career of this product with great interest. If I ever see it in store, I will swatch it and report back, and, you know, I'll be keeping an eye out for reviews. I'm just curious to know what people say. That is it. Thank you so much for watching this episode of New Makeup Hot Takes. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you'll subscribe if you haven't. I hope that you will comment if you feel compelled to do so. But most of all, I hope you're taking extra good care of yourself so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.